Arjun. Primera llamada, primera llamada.
Don't give up the fight. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight.
Buenas tardes, bonsoir.
We got a life to lead. They say
Non,
only the fittest of the fittest shall survive. Stay alive, could you be loved and be loved? Could you be loved and be loved? Could you be loved and be loved? Could you be loved, oh no, and be loved? Say something, could you be loved? Say something, come on. Say something, could you be loved? Say something,
pardon,
curse, reggae.
bonsoir,
Say something, could you be loved?
Excellence.
I think that I have.
Dear delegates, could you please take your seats? The panel will start. Please take your seats. Thank you.
Distingués représentants des États,
Distinguished
observateurs, mesdames, messieurs,
representative
et
of
tous les
states, ladies and
autres, bienvenue
gentlemen,
à cette première session thématique
welcome
sur
to
le
this
thème,
first
de
thematic session
patrimoine et de la
of
diversité en crise.
on the topic of
Une séance qui a
heritage
attiré beaucoup
and
d'attention et
crises.
beaucoup d'intérêt. Donc,
This is a
je
topic
prends
that has
5
drawn a
sessions
great
d'une
deal
heure
of
et ceci pour la
interest.
première. Mon nom est Joanne Bouchard, je
My
travaille au
name is
bureau du
Joanne
Haut-Commissariat aux droits de
Bouchard.
l'homme à
I
Genève.
work
Sur
in
la
the
question
High
plus
Commissioner's
précisément des
office
droits
in
culturels, et c'est
Geneva
un
on
plaisir
the
pour moi d'être
cultural
avec vous
rights, and it's a
ici ce
pleasure
soir.
to be with you this evening.
Cette session thématique
This
vise à discuter de
session
deux thèmes.
wants to
Le
address
premier
two
étant
topics.
les
The first
défis et les
are the
menaces
challenges
au
and the
patrimoine
threats
et à la
to
diversité des
heritage
ressources
and the
culturelles et
diversity
patrimoniales,
of
mais
heritage
aussi
and
le
cultural
rôle que ces mêmes
resources,
ressources
as well
peuvent
as
jouer,
the roles that those resources can
pour
play
renforcer la
to
résilience, pour
reinforce
renforcer la
resilience,
compréhension
to
mutuelle,
reinforce
pour
mutual
renforcer les
understanding, and
capacités des
reinforce
personnes,
the
des groupes, des
capabilities and
institutions
skills
à
of
faire
people,
face aux
groups,
défis,
and
à
institutions
faire face aux
in
menaces, à
meeting
faire face aux
the
conflits,
challenges,
et aux
threats,
désastres
and conflicts and
qui sont
disasters
présents dans
that
chacun
are
de nos pays.
present in each of our
Donc,
countries.
cette première session,
So this
j'inviterai
first
déjà les
session,
premiers représentants
I have
des
the
États
first
à venir me
representatives
rejoindre
of
ici sur le
the
podium.
states
Donc, je demanderai
who
aux
I would
distingués
ask to
représentants
come
de
and
l'Arménie,
join me here on the
de
stage, the
Belize,
representatives of
du Burkina
Armenia,
Faso,
Belize, Burkina
du
Faso,
Tchad,
Chad,
de l'Équateur,
Ecuador,
de l'Ukraine et du
Ukraine,
Royaume-Uni
and
de bien
of
vouloir me
the
rejoindre ici sur le
United
podium, s'il vous
Kingdom.
plaît.
Kindly come and join me at the head table on the podium, please.
Je vous en prie. Alors, pendant que les représentants des États me rejoignent, bonjour.
As we're
Burkina
waiting
Faso.
for the representatives of the states to join me, hello, Burkina Faso. Sit wherever you'd like. Armenia.
Así, no tengo. It's really low, the volume.
Madame.
Uh,
Alors, pendant que les représentants
As
me rejoignent
we're
ici à
waiting
l'avant,
for the
je me
representatives
permets
to
de
join
dire
me
quelques petites
up here,
informations
I'll
par
give
rapport
you
au
a little bit
déroulement
of
de la session
the
qui commence à
logistics
l'instant.
in terms
Donc,
of
comme je
the
disais tout à
session that
l'heure,
we're
cette session
beginning.
va durer
As
5
I
blocs
said,
de 1 heure,
with these
qui
sessions
sont
will be
chacun
5 blocks of
préparés
1 hour,
sur le même format.
prepared and under the same format. First, we will have representatives of the states that will take the floor, followed by representatives of observers. They will have the representatives of the states will have 4 minutes, observers 2. We would ask you to please keep within those time limits. We will have a signal that will let you know just a little bit before the end of your time. And there you have a little bit of the technicalities involved. Now, to begin our debate on this first thematic session, I would like to give the floor first to His Excellency Varam Duyan of Armenia, who is the Minister of Education, Science, Culture and Sport. You have the floor, sir.
Seguridad y la de todos, la Secretaría de Cultura y el Bosque de Chapultepec te invitan a colaborar con las siguientes medidas en caso de emergencia. Identifica las rutas de evacuación y las salidas de emergencia de este espacio.
In the event of an emergency, identify the exits. Please keep the exits uncluttered. If you are within a group, please coordinate a meeting group. This is an area that is free of garbage, so please take your garbage with you. When you're going to the emergency exits, please stay calm. Remember not to run or to push or to scream. Help the elderly, children, and pregnant women. Stay away from areas that may represent a risk for you or those accompanying you. Operate within the guidelines of the security personnel. It's very important to pay attention to these signals from the organizers of this event. Your collaboration and maintaining calm will be very important to your security. The Secretariat of Culture and the Chapultepec Forest thanks you for your visit today. By staying within this space, I authorize the Secretariat of Culture through the Los Pinos Cultural Complex and the Forest of Chapultepec for your use of my image in videos or photographs that will be used with non-profit uses to be transmitted in social media. If you do not wish to authorize this, please approach the organizers to let them know. This based on the agreements and guidelines for transparency, access to public information, and protection of personal data. We thank you for your visit, and please remember to follow the rules in Los Pinos.
Good. Thank you. So apologies for this little hawk at the beginning of the moderation. I'm still missing, I think, the ambassador of Belize. If you could please kindly join us on the stage once you're available. And I believe also the ambassador of Ecuador, or the representative of Ecuador, please, to come and say thank you. And with no further delay, and I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished member, state representatives, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome you at the UNESCO World Conference on Cultural Policies and Sustainable Development and express my deep gratitude to the government of the United Mexican States for hosting this meeting. The topic of heritage and cultural diversity in crisis is extremely important and often demand international involvement. The issue of the preservation of the Armenian cultural heritage in the territories of Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, which are currently under the control of Azerbaijan, is very important for Armenia. After November 9, 2020, over 2,000 Armenian historical and cultural monuments, as well as 12 state museums and galleries with 21,000 artifacts fell under Azerbaijani control. There are serious concerns over the preservation of these historical sites, taken into consideration Azerbaijan's well-known and documented practice of systematic destruction of Armenian cultural heritage in its territories over the last several decades. For example, in case of Nakhichevan, Azerbaijan is implementing a policy of erasing historical evidence of the Armenian presence in Artsakh and nearby areas through the deliberate destructions of Armenian monuments and cultural sites. Since the 44-day war in Artsakh in 2020, Armenia has been continuously informing the international community of the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh and along the border of Armenia with Azerbaijan. On September 13, 2022, Azerbaijan launched large-scale military aggression in several directions of the Armenian-Azerbaijani border and towns of Goris, Jermuk, Varteniz, Kapan, Sot, and nearby villages of the Republic of Armenia. The Azerbaijan aggression has resulted in hundreds of human losses, including among the civilian population of Armenia. Due to the war, crimes by Azerbaijan in the sovereign territory of the Republic of Armenia, the rich cultural heritage of the targeted regions is now at risk, including more than 500 monuments, 14 museums with 45,000 artifacts. According to the data collected by the Human Rights Defenders Office of Armenia, at least 7,600 persons have already displaced from Gearkunik, Vayotzor, and Syunik provinces. Those people are now deprived of their basic rights, including the right of access to culture, which goes against the UN Declaration of Universal Human Rights, Article 27, which states that everyone has a right to freely participate in cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts and share scientific advancement and its benefits. Thus, it is becoming even more relevant to address this issue and implement to UNESCO technical mission to Nagorno-Karabakh and nearby areas. Heritage and cultural diversity must be an important part of the peace process. Hereby, I am calling international colleagues to bring their voices and contribution to save the preserve the millennia-old Armenian cultural and religious heritage in Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. I would like to highlight that heritage is recognized as an important factor for sustainable development, dialogue, and peace. Unfortunately, today, the situation has been escalated. In the endangering our country and heritage. We strongly believe that respect and tolerance towards cultural and national identities will ensure a peaceful and sustainable future for nations to create and enrich and world heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. J'aimerais passer la parole au
I
distingué
would now
représentant de
like to give
Belize,
the floor to the distinguished
Francis
representative
Fonseca,
of
ministre
Belize,
de l'Éducation, de la
Mr.
Culture, de la Science et de la
Fonseca,
Technologie.
Minister of
Monsieur Fonseca.
Education, Culture, Science and Technology. Mr. Fonseca, you have the floor.
Ah, pardon. Alors, on me fait signe que le représentant est absent encore.
Good afternoon. Greetings from Minister Fonseca in Belize. He was not able to make it, so myself as the ambassador in Mexico is sitting in for him. But just a quick update on some of the things that our country in Belize have been doing insofar as establishing and also improving on the orange economy. The government has placed emphasis on the implementation of the UNESCO Convention on the diversity of cultural expressions based for social stability, harmony, sustainable development, and peace. There's been more information and communication highlighting the decade of indigenous language with a view of focusing on improving cultural identity. There are several indigenous communities within our country, and concerted effort has been made to support language education, especially where the Yucatec, Quechua, and Mopan Maya and the indigenous Garifuna people are concerned. An example has been the establishment of the Gulusi Garifuna Primary School, where the Garifuna language is being kept alive along with cultural practices. The government has encouraged cultural retrieval, preservation, and the education of ethnicities in collaboration with all civil society organizations. Creole, as one of the native language, has been a big example of what the government of Belize has been doing. In the Belizean context, investment in the development of museums and creative assets has translated into social and economic benefits, both culturally and for the artist. The government has placed greater implementation of the UNESCO Diversity Convention, which promotes the formulation of national policies and measures that promote creation, production, distribution, and access, irrespective of diverse cultural differences. The government has placed greater emphasis on capacity building and implementation of intellectual property rights for all indigenous crafts and arts. Thank you.
Merci. Merci, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I would give the floor now to His Excellency, Madam Excellency, Mrs. Valérie Caboret, Minister of Communication, Culture, Arts, and Tourism. You have 4 minutes, Madam Caboret. Thank you very much. Yes, I am Madam Caboret, but my portfolio concerns communication, tourism, arts, ladies and gentlemen, as well as culture. It is with great pleasure that I take the floor before you all to give you the message of Burkina Faso. Generally, cultural heritage is disturbed by plural crises. Burkina Faso, like many of its neighbors, is confronted by security challenges which every day are endangering families and creating psychoses within these families. The populations that are affected by this violence abandon their cultural heritage to reinstall themselves in other areas with no cultural ties. It is also open door for illicit traffic of cultural goods that represents funding for terrorism. Mass movement of populations resulting from terrorism has likewise led to a limitation of the selling of cultural goods and preventing the schooling of thousands of young people and children. This status as a form of serious violation of human rights, particularly cultural rights. Yet the statement in the preamble of the Fribourg Declaration of 1998 stipulates violations of cultural rights cause troubles and identity conflicts, which are one of the main causes of violence, wars, and terrorism. As a result, the protection of cultural rights and of the heritage rights for this generation and future generations an obligation and a duty. Honorable guests, it is true that the great crises of history have always been challenging for states and within the sector of culture and creative dynamics that underlie it. It is also true that the great crises of history have often stimulated the rebirth of culture and the increase of new forms of creativity vital for human progress. As an instrument promoting dialogue and resilience, cultural heritage and creativity should be defended strongly by the entire international community through greater support for public policies proposing relevant solutions to the reduction of social disparity and conflicts. As a response to the security crisis prevailing in Sahel, the Burkina Faso government has privileged, in addition to military and security actions, culture as a factor of response and resilience to extremist and violent behavior that causes the breakdown of the social fabric. That is how the cultural and social sectors are focusing on artistic creation. They follow the same auction, and in this, the government in March of 2022 adopted the Charter of Transition Values, which thus places cultural heritage and artistic creativity at the heart of governance in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, within the midst of the health crisis, where all hopes seem to be shattered, we have established the We are pleased to note that digital professions have functioned normally, allowing nations to coordinate and maintain essential sectors. I strongly draw the attention of our organization to the pressing need to reduce the digital divide, which limits the possibilities of communities living in anxiety-provoking or crisis areas in order to allow them to enjoy their cultural heritage and assert their ingenuity. I will not ignore UNESCO's continued confidence to Burkina Faso government in the renewal of the Convention of the Regional Center for Living Arts in Africa. This is an opportunity for me, on behalf of my country, to congratulate myself on the satisfaction of the commitments to our organization by hosting the headquarters of CERAV Africa, which is working quietly for the network of regional space. In closing, I would like to translate our gratitude to the organization for the adoption of the operating strategy within UNESCO to build an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, led by its citizens and constituting a dynamic force on the world stage. Thank you very much.
Merci, Votre Excellence.
Thank you,
Je passe
Your
maintenant la
Excellency.
parole
I would
à
now
Son
give the
Excellence,
floor
Madame
to Her
Eri
Excellency,
Hadim
Madame Ira
Boubacarse,
Najim
Ministre de
Ougora,
la Culture et de la
Minister
Promotion de la
of Culture
Diversité,
and Promotion of
représentante ici pour le
Diversity,
Tchad.
representing Chad today. Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you for giving me the floor. Distinguished guests, it is a great honor for me to take the floor at this time and during this Congress, at a time when the problems of cultural diversity and of heritage will be discussed. Chad is located in Central Africa. It has a surface area of 1,284,000 square miles, 7 million inhabitants. It is made up of an ethnic mosaic of different habits and diversified languages. It is the cradle of humanity with the discovery in 2011 of Tedanthropus, Sahelanthropus. It is likewise a space of great discoveries of paintings and Rupester cave paintings in Tipesti. This conference, this World Conference to deal with culture as a global world good, is taking place in a very important and significant time of the cultural life of Chad. As such, allow me to announce to you that after a series of national consultations of all of the partners and actors in culture in the country, we have just validated our cultural policy. Said policy that I have in hand before you and that I present solemnly is adopted at the Ministerial Council and by presidential executive order, which was adopted on September 23, 2022. It was possible to do this thanks to the firm will of the President of Chad, who, during his address in this same document, expressed his firm will to make culture a priority sector in Chad. Ladies and gentlemen, Chad has exceptional heritage potential from its rich diversity, lakes, animal reserves that are endangered, different sectors that are various, as well as cave paintings, archaeological and paleolithical sites, fauna and flora reserves, monuments for protected areas of objects of art, sites of belief and expression, traditional architecture, etc. In addition, the cultural heritage of Chad is not well known and not well valued at a time when the orientations of the 2003 convention to fill these lacunae, Chad has approached international organizations to undertake pilot projects for cultural heritage in six provinces. It has had the approval of the Bureau of the Inter-Office Community of UNESCO. We only need the protocol of assistance, And that work will result in the proposal of an inventory, elements to reinforce, rather for the reinforcement of their safeguarding. I would likewise like to invite you to reflect deeply on the place of education with respect to culture and cultural diversity. Likewise, it seems to me that it's essential that we recall that the absence of heritage can turn memory silence and make the work on the history of young nations very difficult when they have to face the delicate question of building a political community and a project for the future. As we look to the future, we need the solidarity and the knowledge with respect to the colonial situation. That cannot be possible without going back into history and looking at history when in Chad there are many instances of these historical events. Taking awareness raising in terms of cultural diversity in crisis and heritage, the government has adopted a legal provision for protection while ratifying the UNESCO conventions within the framework of implementation of Code 72, for instance. The Republic of Chad has a list of 9 sites, 2 of which are already registered in the World Heritage sites, Lac Uniaga in 2012 and the Massif of Denede in 2016. 2 other sites are under preparation for their proposal to be registered, the National Part of Encoman and the cultural landscape of the Chad Lakes. It is thus urgent that this unreplaceable heritage be protected and preserved for current and future generations. Thus, I call upon you all to join us and to enable us to meet these challenges, because it is a matter of ensuring the preservation and the valuing of the material and cultural heritage so that we can convey it to our children and future generations. Thank you very much.
Merci, Votre Excellence.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'd like now to give the floor to a video presentation that comes from His Excellency Alexander Ocholenko, Minister of Culture and Information in Ukraine.
Dear colleagues from all over the world, in recent years we have begun to actively discuss and investigate the impact of new challenges on culture. The world has already faced the impact of climate change on culture heritage. The pandemic broadly forced to reconsider the attitude towards culture and artists, but this year we are faced a new powerful threat, a full-scale war in Europe. From the first days of the war, it became clear that this is a war against culture. The invader does not recognize our right to exist and doesn't want our original culture, Ukrainian culture, to exist. The full-scale war in Ukraine changes completely not only our understanding of the world in which we lived, but also our attitude to values and traditions. All the Ukrainians have united unprecedentedly to preserve all our Ukrainian freedom, territory, culture, thousands-year history, and not only Ukrainian, but all European and values of democratic world. Russia's full-scale invasion on the territory of Ukraine causes mass serious destruction of civilian objects, culture institution and culture heritage sites. Even UNESCO World Heritage sites in Ukraine are under the threat of destruction. By the end of September 2022, the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine has documented more than 500 episodes of Russian war crimes against Ukrainian culture heritage. I pay attention only to several episodes. On May 7, during the shelling, the Russian military deliberately destroyed the National Literature and Memorial Museum of Grigory Skovoroda in the village of Skovorodinivka. This year, according to UNESCO, the world will celebrate the 300th anniversary of Skovoroda. Odessa was attacked recently by missiles and kamikaze drones repeatedly. UNESCO experts already on the ground would provide technical assistance so that Odessa could be urgently added to both the World Heritage List and the list of heritage sites in danger. I draw your attention to the crucial importance of the provision 21 of the UNESCO Executive Board resolution that says, invites the governing bodies of all relevant UNESCO conventions and intergovernment programs facilitated by the Director General and the Secretariat to assess and develop measures taking into account the situation in Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders across UNESCO fields of competence. We should also take into consideration the decision of the Committee for the Protection of Culture Property in the event of armed conflict of the Second Protocol to the Hague Convention of 1954, the granting of enhanced protection to cultural properties in Ukraine, and the Declaration on the Protection of Cultural Heritage in Ukraine. I would like to stress that we strongly condemn the destruction of cultural heritage sites committed by Russian army during the war against Ukraine and believe that in the modern world there must be no place for such acts and vandalism against cultural heritage of any country. That's why Ukrainians call to suspend Russia's chairmanship in the UNESCO Committee for Cultural Heritage. There is no place of representatives of death and destruction in such world-respected organization. We are convinced that all these important signals of the UNESCO must be reflected in the declaration of such large-scale international event as Mondiacult 2022. Today it's high time for the world and UNESCO to act and show that it remains faithful to its fundamental values. The culture of each nation is unique, and all of them are made up of exactly the mosaic of culture diversity in the world. The loss at least of one element will be a loss not for a single nation, but for the whole world. Over the past 7 months, we have received unprecedented support from the international community, which shows the importance of Ukrainian culture for the world. And all Ukrainian heritage of more than 1,000 years history are now under the threat. We can defend it if we are united. Stand with Ukraine.
Merci aux représentants de l'Ukraine.
Thank you to the representative of Ukraine. Thank you for the video. I would like to now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the UK, United Kingdom, and Northern Ireland,
Andrew Stewart, the Minister of the Arts, qui vient
the
également
Minister
parler.
of the Arts, Mr. Andrew Stewart.
As the newly appointed Minister for Arts, I'm delighted to be able to address you today. I'm sorry that I cannot join you in person, but I very much look forward to hearing the outcomes of this conference and how we can work together to address the challenges impacting our global culture and heritage. We are meeting today to foster multilateral cooperation in support of a more robust and resilient cultural sector, a sector that is already recognised for its contributions to and promotion of solidarity, peace and security. But while we engage in these discussions, one of our members, Russia, continues to pursue an illegal, unprovoked and unjustifiable aggression against Ukraine. This is a violation of international law and the mandate of UNESCO. Attempts to erase the cultures of others are unacceptable. We call on Russia to immediately withdraw beyond Ukraine's internationally recognized borders and demand an end to the offensive to prevent further damage and harm to the country's cultural heritage in all its forms. And it is not just in Ukraine. Unfortunately, heritage continues to be damaged as a result of conflict across the world. We have a collective responsibility to hold those at fault to account and to also protect the heritage most at risk. In 2016, the UK government launched the Cultural Protection Fund with the British Council. This fund supports efforts to keep cultural heritage sites and objects safe, as well as supporting the recording, conservation, and restoration of heritage. Since its launch, the fund has evolved to meet the challenges of our rapidly changing world. It now also supports work tackling the effects of the climate crisis on cultural heritage, as well as providing urgent emergency support in places such as Beirut and Ukraine. I am proud to see the fund's power to transform the lives of individuals and communities by connecting us to our shared pasts and opening up avenues for more sustainable futures. The range of projects funded are testament not only to the rich diversity of our cultural heritage, but the scope of what we stand to lose if we don't safeguard it. Every Cultural Protection Fund grantee is fighting to preserve the places, practices, and objects that we value most for future generations. Protecting heritage at risk will only succeed if we work with communities, though. And that's what distinguishes the Cultural Protection Fund, its emphasis on community leadership, knowledge, and partnership. No one knows the histories, culture, and needs of a community better than the community itself, and that is why every project has a local partner. By prioritising partnership working and knowledge exchange, the fund is helping us to build a more resilient shared future. Now more than ever, in the face of conflict, climate change and crises, governments have a critical role to play in continuing to address the threats to our shared cultural heritage by working with the communities and people it impacts the most. I really hope that you have a productive conference and look forward to hearing about the outcomes. Thank you.
Remerciements à le distingué
Thank you to the
du
distinguished
Royaume-Uni pour
representative
ces
of the United
vidéos.
Kingdom for the video.
Je ne suis pas certaine si
I'm not sure
l'ambassadeur ou la
if
ministre de
the
l'Équateur a pu
minister
nous rejoindre
from
entre-temps.
Ecuador was
On me fait signe que
able to
non.
arrive.
D'accord.
No?
Dans ce cas,
Okay.
j'aimerais déjà
Because
remercier
then I would
tous les
like to
ministres
thank
ici avec nous pour
all of the
pour
ministers
avoir
who are here with
ouvert en
us
fait cette
for
discussion
having
qui va se
opened this
continuer encore pour
discussion that
toute
will
session.
continue
En déjà
in the
nous
next
posant
session
un certain nombre de défis, mais
by already
aussi
posing
d'espoir
certain
par rapport
challenges and
aux
also
crises qui
hopes
menacent
and
la diversité et le
vis-à-vis the
patrimoine.
challenges
Je vais vous
and the
inviter à
threats
peut-être
that
reprendre vos
are
places pour
menacing
passer
our
à la seconde
heritage.
partie de la discussion avec les
So if
observateurs. Je vous
you would like
remercie.
to go back to your seats, and we will continue with the second part of this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Et pour la suite, j'aimerais inviter
And
le
then to follow,
représentant
I'd like to ask or invite the
ICROM,
representative,
Monsieur Joseph King,
Mr.
de l'International
Joseph
Center for the
King
Study of the Preservation
from the
and Restoration
International
of Cultural
Center for the
Property.
Study of the
En tant
Preservation and
qu'observateur,
Restoration
de
of
vouloir nous
Cultural
rejoindre.
Property. Mr. Joseph King, he's the Senior
2 minutes,
Director.
malheureusement. Que 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I speak on behalf of ICROM, an intergovernmental organization based in Rome. This theme is particularly relevant to ICROM, given our work with our member states and partners, such as UNESCO, for the past 60 years in the protection of cultural heritage in times of crisis. Most recently, we have several initiatives dealing with this issue. In particular, I would mention our program on first aid and resilience for cultural heritage in times of crisis.
Just a little closer to the microphone. A bit closer to the microphone.
Sorry. Need to start again or go on?
No, please.
Go on, okay. I would mention the program on first aid and resilience for cultural heritage in times of crisis, as well as our work with UNESCO on a project within the Revive the Spirit of Mosul initiative, training both professionals and craftsmen in the restoration techniques. In thinking about policies that we would like to see in the future, there are two main areas that ICROM would like to contribute to this reflection. The first revolves around the need for policies that promote a truly people-centered approach to conservation of the heritage at local, national, and international levels. While the idea has gained interest in the past 20 years as a concept, in practice, there are still very few real people-centered projects being implemented around the world. Policies are needed to promote us listening to communities as we work with them to diagnose problems and provide solutions together with them. This is especially true in post-crisis recovery phases after a disaster, where there are significant issues for communities trying to rebuild not just their heritage, but their whole way of life. So we must listen to them and work with them. The second point we would put forward for policymakers is the need to look beyond our narrow group of institutions and experts. The protection of heritage and cultural diversity in times of crisis needs joint efforts with other disciplines. For example, at the international level, we need stronger partnerships with UN Habitat when looking at issues of heritage and diversity in urban and territorial contexts. We need to work with all of the UN Special Rapporteurs on Human Rights when there are rights-based issues in the sites that we are working with on the ground. And even a little bit further afield, we need to work with organizations like FAO and other food-based agencies when dealing with crisis in food security, which is another thing that we have to deal with. Now, you may ask, what does food security have to do with heritage? Well, learning from traditional agricultural practices will help us to conserve our cultural agricultural landscapes and local knowledge systems, which are therefore beneficial to cultural diversity. And so we need to work on all of those to help sustain those landscapes and that traditional knowledge. So therefore, we need policies to promote this interdisciplinary approach to dealing with crisis and disaster. To conclude, ICROM, which has capacity building at its heart in terms of our activities, pledges to work with our member states, to work with other international organizations such as UNESCO, to widen our scope and to carry out capacity building on all of these issues related to people-centered approaches for the conservation of heritage in times of crisis. Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and I look forward to discussing with you over the course of the next days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. I would like to now invite the representative of the NGO HVPM India to come on the stage for a statement.
Good morning, everyone. It's been a pleasure over here. Thank you, the Secretariat, for giving us NGOs this opportunity to be here. I would like to also thank all the people over here. And today I'm here to talk about the cultural heritage crisis which is going on all over the world. UNESCO has already declared 21st May as the World Cultural Day. And in 2001, they have adopted the policy on that. After that, I think it will be of more effect if UNESCO will talk about the culture in more global way, where they can host an international event in UNESCO's chosen host country, and which will invite all the member state and organizations in the given chosen country of UNESCO, and they will give their traditional performances regarding traditional sports and also the culture. So I think it will be of more effect when people will come and unite in front together rather than doing it in the respective countries. It is very important to play an active role to safeguard the culture of each and every country. So I think it's just my opinion regarding this is to have international sports, traditional sports and cultural week, not a day, because in a day it is very difficult to portray all the cultures, and it will be of great discussion when all the people will come together, the member state and other organizations, and they will understand all the cultures of different countries, not only one, but they will see in front. And UNESCO has been doing a lot regarding exhibitions and all of that stuff, but I think it will be great to be of more active role and get more people in unity in one place and have the demonstrations regarding traditional sports and culture. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for this message and for this invitation also to spend more time getting to know each other's heritage and diversity. I have a request for the floor from the distinguished representative of Azerbaijan for right of reply. This will be 1 minute. We've given you the floor. Thank you.
Madame la Présidente, merci. Juste pour 1 minute.
Just for a minute.
Pour réagir à l'intervention du ministre de la Culture de l'Arménie. I'll just pass to English. Well, this statement or presentation, if I can call it a presentation, was such a nonsense that it's difficult to pick up where to start. It's extremely disappointing that this statement comes from the representative of a country which has been notoriously violating the norms and principles of international law throughout 3 decades, almost 3 decades of occupation of Azerbaijani territories. But maybe the temptation to mislead the international community was so strong that Armenian representative could not stand that temptation, coming up with false and absurd statement, full of nonsense, as I've said. He referred to the aggressor. Now, shall we believe to the fairy tales presented by him, or shall we look at the resolutions of the UN Security Council adopted back in 1993, which clearly stated which country was the aggressor by demanding full, unconditional withdrawal of the Armenian occupying forces from the internationally recognized territories of Azerbaijan. Just to give you some statistical data that I think will be to the interest of this distinguished audience. During the occupation of 20%, more than 20% of Azerbaijan territories, throughout almost 30 years, more than 700 historical monuments, 22 museums, including 100,000 museum exhibits, 927 libraries, 58 archaeological sites, 26 fortresses and fortress walls, and other objects of the cultural heritage of Azerbaijan were destroyed, plundered, or misappropriated by Armenia. Now, Armenia was referring also to the UNESCO mission by again misleading the international community. Azerbaijan has always expressed very clearly that we were ready, and we are still ready to accept, to invite and accept and host UNESCO mission to the liberated territories of Azerbaijan. And we're also ready to engage ourselves in discussions about the UNESCO mission to the Republic of Armenia, where the cultural heritage belonging to Azerbaijani people has been destroyed for almost decades. Has been documented. I'm sorry to exceed my 1 minute, Madam Chair. I just want to call our colleagues from Armenia to seize the opportunity established by the current situation on the ground, to accept these realities, to move forward on the basis of respect to sovereignty of member states of UNESCO. And I hope this call will be taken up by our Armenian colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci aux représentants de l'Azerbaïdjan pour ce droit de réponse. Ça conclut déjà cette première heure de la session thématique sur diversité et patrimoine en crise. une session, je pense, qui ouvre plusieurs perspectives qui, je crois, vont se continuer et dans la prochaine heure et dans les heures de demain. Ce que j'entends, pour faire juste un court résumé de ce que j'entends, c'est que ce n'est pas les instruments qui manquent. On a cité dans cette session déjà des instruments de droits de l'homme, avec les obligations par rapport au droit de participer à la vie culturelle. On a cité les instruments de droit à la culture, donc les instruments de l'UNESCO, mais aussi du droit international humanitaire, qui devrait normalement mettre en place un cadre permettant aux États de protéger et la diversité et les ressources patrimoniales qui se retrouvent dans chacun des pays et dont la richesse et la diversité devraient normalement pouvoir nourrir chacun des autres pays également. Donc, l'appel que j'entends, et je pense que cette discussion va se poursuivre, j'espère, dans la même ligne, c'est un besoin de trouver des façons de mieux faire ensemble. Donc, on a entendu de la part des représentants qui étaient ici à la fois le besoin de faire participer au niveau local, d'entendre les demandes, d'entendre le sens, la valeur d'identité que portent les ressources de patrimoine dans la continuité entre ce que nous étions et l'éducation qu'on veut donner et le futur qu'on veut construire. Donc, il y a une continuité là assez difficile à construire, mais aussi une continuité de coopération entre les États, avec les organisations de la société civile et avec les autres institutions pouvant prêter main forte à ce travail. Donc, un grand défi déjà, ou plusieurs défis en fait, qui ont déjà été élucidés par les participants à cette première heure, ce qui nous permet de terminer à l'heure cette première session. Je remercie tous les participants, je vous remercie de votre attention, d'avoir été ici. Je cède la parole donc à la prochaine série de ministres pour la poursuite de la discussion.
Series to continue with the discussion. Thank you.